Hello and welcome to Crime Revelation. Today, we bring you a gripping true crime story that begins in Wellington, Florida, filled with ambition, betrayal, and mystery. This is the tale of Marlene Warren, a successful businesswoman whose dark fate left a community shaken. Stay tuned for the details, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more thrilling crime stories. On May 26, 1990, Marlene Warren, a 40-year-old businesswoman, was spending a quiet morning at her home in an upscale neighborhood in Wellington, Florida, alongside her son, Joseph Aarons, who was 21 at the time. Their residence was part of the Aero Club community, which featured private runways for each home, a reflection of the hard work Marlene put in to provide a comfortable life for her family. She was a successful entrepreneur with multiple rental properties in West Palm Beach, valued at around $1 million, as well as an airplane, a used car rental company, and even a registered racehorse. Additionally, she worked as a cargo ship inspector. However, despite her professional achievements, Marlene had experienced profound personal tragedy. She had married young and had two sons, John and Joseph, before her first marriage ended when she was just 20. She then married Michael Warren in 1972, when Joseph was only 3 years old, and Michael assisted her in managing their car rental business, a Bargain Motors. For a time, life seemed to be on the upswing, but everything changed dramatically when one of her sons, John Aarons Jr., tragically died in a car accident in the fall of 1988. The loss weighed heavily on Marlene, altering her relationship with Michael and forcing her to navigate each day with care for Joseph despite the heartache. On that fateful day in May, Marlene was having breakfast with Joseph and 3 of his friends when a car, a white Chrysler LeBaron, pulled into the driveway. At 10:45 a.m., they heard an unexpected knock at the door, which was unusual because the doorbell was broken. Joseph later recalled that it had been just an ordinary morning until everything changed in an instant. When Marlene opened the door, out stepped a person in full clown costume, toting a basket of flowers and a red heart-shaped balloon that said, "You're the greatest." Joseph had remembered her saying, "How pretty, how nice." Recently, Joseph had broken his leg, so they all assumed it was a light-hearted get-well gift. But soon, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Joseph described hearing a bang before his whole world changed. Joseph rushed to the front door, only to find his mother lying on the ground, having been shot. The person in the clown costume then walked back to the car, glancing over at Joseph. The sight of the individual, fully dressed in a clown outfit, was unsettling. Joseph later recalled that it was impossible to make out their identity because the costume covered everything. He described how the clown's face looked like a mask because it was so smooth. It looked like a China doll. Without the orange wig, Joseph estimated the person was around 5 feet 9 inches with large hands, and he thought it was a man. Instead of the usual floppy clown shoes, he noticed the individual was wearing combat boots. Still in shock, Joseph said he didn't fully comprehend what had happened until he saw his mother's teeth gone and her gasping for air. After calling 911, he grabbed his car keys and sped off, running red lights in a desperate attempt to catch up with the person responsible, but sadly he couldn't. Meanwhile, Bill Kramer, a neighbor walking his dog, heard what he thought was the sound of a nail gun and saw people rushing out of the Warren home. Then he heard the urgent shout, "They've shot Joseph's mother." Bill's wife urged him to stay back while she called emergency services. When the police and medical teams arrived, they found Marlene lying near the front door. She was rushed to West Palm Beach Hospital for surgery but never regained consciousness, and the family was eventually forced to make the heartbreaking decision to take her off life support. Forensically, there was little evidence left at the scene in terms of fingerprints or DNA, stated Alethea McRoberts, the assistant prosecutor. Nothing appeared to be stolen, an important detail that ruled out the possibility of a robbery. Prosecutor Dave Ehrenberg remarked that this was a secluded community. You had to know where you were going, and you had to have a purpose. This led the police to believe that the incident was personal and premeditated. The police began a homicide investigation. The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office issued an alert for the LeBaron and shifted their focus to the family, first questioning Marlene's son Joseph and then Marlene's husband, Michael Warren. Their initial attention was on her husband, Michael, as they were dealing with marital issues and a divorce seemed imminent. When authorities questioned him about his whereabouts during the time of the incident, Michael explained that he had been en route to Calder Racecourse in Miami Gardens with friends, placing him several miles away from the scene of the crime. When asked if Marlene had any enemies, he suggested a theory, mentioning that Marlene collected rent for some of their properties. He added that she frequently handled evictions, which he believed could have led her to make enemies. However, Marlene's son Joseph had previously described her as a compassionate woman who was understanding when tenants fell behind on rent. Michael Warren's dealership, a Bargain Motors, was already under investigation by the police for questionable business practices. He was known for running misleading ads that intentionally created confusion between his lot and a more established brand. Michael was also suspected of rolling back odometers on cars to increase their sale prices. About 2 hours after the tragic event on May 26, 1990, the sheriff's office received an anonymous tip suggesting that they investigate Michael Warren and Sheila Keene. This tip would steer the investigation into Marlene's murder in the following weeks and months. It was revealed that Sheila worked for Michael as a repossession agent at the car rental agency, and rumors circulated about a possible affair between them. Many witnesses reported signs of a romantic relationship. Michael's employees also told the police that he was involved in a long-term affair with Sheila Keene. A former employee remarked that it was no secret that Michael was a player. The employee further added that they'd leave the doors wide open and that there was no attempt to hide it. The workers described Sheila as a tomboy, noting that she dressed in a manly fashion and often wore combat boots. Sheila's then-husband, Richard Keene, worked as a repo man, and she assisted him with repossessions, which is how she initially met Michael. She soon fell in love with him and divorced Richard Keene. Sheila's behavior began to grow more possessive of Michael, but the employees at the car lot believed Michael was only interested in the relationship to fulfill his physical needs. Both Michael and Sheila firmly denied the affair in separate interviews with the police. When asked directly if she had ever owned a clown suit, Sheila denied it. While there was not enough evidence for an arrest at the time, Sheila did allow the police to take a sample of her hair, a decision that would prove to be her undoing decades later. Claude Poiters, an employee at a Bargain Motors, informed the police about an incident that occurred 45 days prior to Marlene's murder. A couple, Mr. and Mrs. Restivo, accidentally contacted a Bargain Motors instead of Payless Car Rentals, the company from which they had rented a white Chrysler LeBaron. According to Claude, Mike advised them to leave the keys in the visor, assuring them that the car would be collected. Claude recounted to the police that he drove Michael and Sheila to Payless Car Rentals and witnessed them getting into the white vehicle before driving away. He had been instructed not to disclose any details about the car. Authorities believed this was the vehicle later linked to Marlene's murder, thinking they could demonstrate to a jury that Sheila had access to it. However, when they questioned her about whether she had ever been in that car, Sheila told detectives that she had never been in a Chrysler LeBaron. Marlene's parents revealed to police that she had confided in them about marital problems and her suspicions regarding Michael's fidelity. Her son, Joseph Aarons, recalled his mother expressing fears, saying, "If anything happens to me, your father did it." Joseph noted that he and investigators harbored early doubts about Sheila Keene's involvement, given his awareness of their affair. He reflected on the situation, saying, "Michael wasn't coming home, so that said it all." He intended to testify, should the case go to trial, that he had witnessed Sheila making flirtatious advances towards Michael during a house party when Marlene was present. He recalled that he knew something was going on, but believed that Marlene and Michael didn't want to argue in front of him, adding that if the situation had led to a trial, he would have pointed out that Sheila attended his mother's funeral. During the investigation, it was uncovered that, a year prior, Michael Warren had asked a disturbing question to attorney Christopher DeSantis while exiting a courtroom in Palm Beach County. He inquired about what would happen to a wife's estate if her husband were to kill her. DeSantis recalled that his first thought was whether Michael was out of his mind, as it seemed strange to ask such a question with his wife present. However, as he looked around, DeSantis noticed that Marlene was not with him. Once upon a time, DeSantis and Marlene had maintained a connection since 1986, when DeSantis served as the attorney for Marlene's son during a legal case. Over the years, DeSantis believed the marriage between Marlene and Michael Warren was stable and without issues. DeSantis recalled thinking that Michael's question during their conversation was a hypothetical scenario, one that he compared to a law school question. DeSantis explained that he told Michael that it was not just about whether a man kills his wife, the key question is whether he gets convicted. If he's found guilty of murder, he wouldn't inherit anything. But if it's a lesser charge, he could still inherit. As whispers started to spread, speculation arose about whether Mike wanted to retain their properties and business without formally divorcing Marlene. However, there was one problem. Mike had an alibi. But what about Sheila? Did she have an airtight alibi as well? The question became crucial for the police, especially as they worked to uncover who wore the clown costume on that fateful day. Clues found at Marlene's house proved invaluable to the investigation. Authorities traced the balloons and flowers discovered at the scene to a Publix supermarket, where two employees recalled seeing a woman purchase them just 2 hours before the shooting. They described her as a white woman with long brown hair tied in a ponytail, with some noting that she exhibited more masculine traits. When shown the evidence, Sheila denied having visited the store. Further inquiries revealed that the clown costume had been purchased at a shop called Spotlight Costume Shop. Two employees reported that a tall, slender white woman with long brown hair had bought the costume just 2 days prior, specifically requesting white face makeup but choosing not to buy clown shoes. A store employee handed over a receipt from a woman who had purchased a full clown costume and a vibrant wig just days earlier. The woman in question was of course 26-year-old Sheila Keene. When detectives later presented a photo lineup, they identified Sheila as the customer, although one employee was somewhat uncertain. 4 days after the tragedy, the white Chrysler LeBaron linked to the crime was found in an abandoned Winn-Dixie parking lot associated with Michael's car lot business, which was also 8 miles from Marlene's home. This provided a direct link between the car and Sheila's workplace. Upon examining the vehicle, investigators discovered orange and yellow strands resembling clown wig hair on the floor, along with several strands of brown human hair. Witnesses had noted that the clown involved in the incident had been wearing black lace-up shoes instead of traditional clown shoes. Detectives were also able to collect orange and yellow acrylic hair fibers from the ribbons of the balloons delivered to the victim. On the same day they obtained a search warrant for Sheila's residence. Authorities discovered 2 pairs of black lace-up shoes in her home. Crime scene technicians later recovered both orange and yellow acrylic fibers, along with burgundy hair fibers, from the shoes' soles. The shoes matched the description of those worn by the clown, and further analysis suggested that the orange and yellow synthetic strands were consistent with those found inside the abandoned vehicle. However, in 1990, forensic DNA testing was not yet available, and without hard evidence, the investigation was at a standstill. 4 months after Marlene's murder, police raided Michael's car lot, uncovering enough evidence to convict him of racketeering and odometer tampering, for which he was sentenced to 8 years in prison, of which he served only 3.5. After his release in 1997, he spoke to his son Joe only once and then moved on with his life. Despite the growing suspicion surrounding Sheila, there was not enough evidence for an arrest, and the case went cold for years. Fast forward to 2014, when the sheriff's office received a federal grant to reinvigorate the investigation. A task force, comprising members from the state attorney's office and the FBI, began reevaluating witness accounts and gathering new evidence. They meticulously analyzed the original evidence from 1990 using advanced DNA technology, hoping to uncover fresh leads that could finally implicate Sheila in the murder of Marlene Warren. This new investigation focused on two key types of evidence: acrylic fibers and human hair. Investigators discovered that the acrylic fibers recovered from the car, Sheila's apartment shoes, and a balloon ribbon were identical. More importantly, the human hair found in the vehicle was determined to belong to Sheila, providing law enforcement with enough evidence to proceed with an arrest. As they delved deeper into the case, investigators learned that Michael had sought a fresh start and moved to Virginia with his new wife, Debbie, who was blonde. However, police later uncovered that Debbie was actually Sheila Keene Warren, Michael's former affair partner, living under an alias for 17 years. Though both denied having an affair at the time of Marlene Warren's murder in 1990, they eventually married in 2002, 12 years after the tragic event. Sheila and Michael Warren settled into a house after running a burger joint called Purple Cow in Kingsport, Tennessee. Detectives spoke to an employee from Purple Cow, who recalled how Keene Warren had dressed as a clown one Halloween, even providing a photograph of her in full clown makeup. After selling their restaurant, Purple Cow, they relocated to their lake house in Abingdon, Virginia, a property they purchased for an impressive $600,000. Sheila was arrested in Virginia for first-degree murder on September 26, 2017, 27 years after Marlene Warren's death. She was extradited back to Florida, but the trial stalled for 5 years due to COVID-era restrictions, which slowed the process considerably. In 2023, Sheila was offered a sweetheart plea deal. In exchange for pleading guilty to second-degree murder, she was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Both Joe Aarons and the state had aimed for a minimum 15-year sentence. Despite changing her plea to guilty, Sheila Keene Warren still maintains her innocence through her defense attorney, Greg Rosenfeld, who noted how difficult it was for her to confess to a crime she insists she did not commit. Palm Beach County State Attorney Dave Ehrenberg pointed out the contradiction, emphasizing that the defense could not argue both sides. He stated, "Even when she's released from prison, she will still be a convicted murderer." Thanks to sentencing rules regarding time served, Sheila Keene Warren was released on November 4, 2024. Michael was never charged in connection with Marlene's murder and stood by Sheila throughout the ordeal. Marlene's son Joseph, meanwhile, expressed that he wishes Sheila had received a life sentence for taking his mother's life. He recognized that harboring anger would only lead to ruin. For him, the duration of the sentence mattered less than the fact that the truth was finally coming to light. When Sheila returns to her life, he mused, "It's going to be more challenging than she expects. I sensed no remorse from her, and it tells me she'll face her own struggles." While he had wished for a harsher sentence, Aarons found solace in cherishing the memories of his mother Marlene's life rather than dwelling on her death. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching our deep dive into the case of Marlene Warren. If you found this story compelling, please give us a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Join us next time as we explore another intriguing case that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Until then, stay safe.